Happy Wednesday. It's the Hoffman Show / Happy Wednesday from the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Cameras, microphones, all in place. Where are we? We're over here. We're over there. Now we're in the middle of the screen. Anthony, I just don't know how to make this look all good. Where am I supposed to be sitting? Where's this microphone supposed to be where it's not blocking my entire face? What if I just did the show like this? It looks like I got a clown nose, except for it's a microphone.
I don't think that's the most optimal way to do the show.
I think you're right. The microphone does need to be in front of your mouth, not your nose. Plus, I look like an idiot. All right, John Keim, very smart. He's going to join us at 5:30 with his thoughts on the day at Commanders practice. I was in Ashburn as well. We also got some fun at 5 o'clock with a little NBA coaching talk. But Keim, not my beat at 5:30 today. A little shift-a-roo. Pick 6 at 6. A lot of talk about Daron Payne, which we're going to get to here in a few minutes as well. And in fact, we'll kind of get to right now. Look, it was an OTA practice. People ask, hey, well, actually, Anthony, I had a really funny conversation with Santana Moss before practice today. I got to the facility a little bit late. It was when I wanted to get there, but I was there too late to be in on the Joe Witt press conference. I didn't really have anything to ask Joe. You'll hear plenty from Witt later. Fine. So the press room was closed off because the press conference had started. Santana was sitting outside in his, in the office area where they do their work for all the in-house shows. And so I was able to pop in there and see him and see BC real quick. And Santana and I were just talking about, how not important this time of year is from a media standpoint, right? Because it is really important for the players. Like the practices, the field work, all this kind of stuff. You do get something out of it. There's a reason that it exists. But for us, we're not getting a ton out of this. It's a lot of individual work. It's a lot of drills. It's guys working on stuff. So even it's like, oh, I know what that drill is, and he didn't do it right. Guy might be trying something. Unless you talk through it and you're in all of the meetings and you're in everything, you don't get out of it. And so Santana was like, man, I swear, everywhere I go right now, people are like, oh, how them boys looking? He's like it's June? Like it's May? Now it's June. We don't know. We don't know. And I get it. We still got to do the show. We can tell you what we saw. Everything's relative. I can tell you that the guys that weren't there last week weren't there again. Not only Terry and Marshawn Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil, but Eddie Goldman hasn't been at either one of these. Last week, Javon Kinlaw was there. This week, Javon Kinlaw wasn't there. Last week, Michael Gallup was there. This week, Michael Gallup wasn't there. These guys are vets that have been around. They're doing really basic stuff. Depending on the position group, you're barely involved in any team drills. It's just a bunch of individual stuff. And especially in a time where you can do some of the meeting work remotely, because I don't know if these guys are in the meetings or not. They may be, they may not be. It's just not that big of a deal if guys aren't there. As for the guys that were there, you'd like to see them perform well. But let's say we see a guy have a really good day, and what we don't know is the wide receiver working against him is trying a bunch of stuff out, and it turns out that stuff didn't work or needs more work. Well, all of a sudden the DB looks amazing. Or the DB is trying to learn the new technique. It's different than the last place he was, whether that place was college or whether that place was a different NFL system. And all of a sudden the wide receiver's smoking him, and it's like, okay. Because no one's ever made a mistake while learning something before. And so I just, especially today, they did some teamwork. They did some full 11 on 11. They did a little bit of 7-on-7. They actually had 2 7-on-7 fields going at once. They had the 2s and 4s on the far field. They had the 1s and 3s on the near field. They were doing red zone 7-on-7. Jaden threw 1 million touchdown passes. That's what you'd hope would happen in red zone 7-on-7. I don't got a ton for you. I don't. You can ask anything you want. And some of the things that were said were interesting today, which is why we will have a pick six at 6. But in terms of what did we see at OTAs today? Bunch of dudes running around in shorts and helmets. They're not even in shells. They're in shorts, practice jerseys, helmets, and cleats. Anthony, what do you want to know?
I mean, I think as far as, the red zone execution or even like some of the situational stuff, I think if you go back to last season, that's where we excel. So the fact that they're, putting that stuff in, emphasizing it, and, sharing the basics, giving the basics, I think is just instrumental to, how successful we were last year. And then hopefully, I don't think we're going to, duplicate what we did last year in terms of fourth down conversion and, executing at such a high rate. But, as long as we're taking the necessary steps to, still be effective in that category, I think we're seeing it now. So, I'm excited. And again, like to the point that you were raising about, what you talk with Santana about, about what the team looks like right now. It's just like, we're excited, Craig. That's all it is. We're excited.
And I get it. I get being excited. And I think you just made a really good point. Like the fact that they're working on the situational stuff. It's like, okay, it's not just red zone, it's 7-on-7, or you get in a move the ball. They did one. It was just the threes. Did like a 2-minute situation. Ended with Sam Hartman getting picked off. So womp on that front. But you have, the situational work. They're doing a lot of it, and like that's great. It's good that they're doing it. As I said, Logan actually said this, so I'll give credit where it's due. Logan was like, it's not important for us. It's important for us to build a file because we don't know at this point in the calendar what's going to be important, right? We don't know when we get to September and October and November what thing we are seeing right now is going to wind up being important that we didn't expect. But last year, I was like, yeah, they're doing this situational drill. And like all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, they're doing a lot of situational work. And then they were the best maybe situational team in the league. And it's like, oh, well, that seems like it might have been really important. Sometimes it's harder to connect the dots now. And thus it's hard to be like, oh, this thing happened. This was important. And then you see it. And maybe it's even a specific play. Like maybe it's like, oh, I remember them working on this route concept, this route combination in May, in June. And it pays off in October. And so they're working on stuff. They're out there. It looks like a Dan Quinn practice. There's energy. Guys are having fun. Got some cool videos that I'll post up on YouTube and on Instagram and such. But at the end of the day, it's hard now to understand what's going to be important later. And that's positive and negative. Like, if all of a sudden Marshawn Lattimore's missing a bunch of communication all year, then him not being in camp, it's not that it would have fixed everything, but it certainly wouldn't have hurt. If Laramie Tunsil is out of sync with the rest of the offensive line, then maybe he should have been here the whole time. But I tend to think those things will not be the case, and we just don't know as of right now what's going to be important moving forward. Obviously, if you were to make a pretty significant trade, we know that would be important. The Commanders have already made a couple this offseason. Talk of the town today is one that was for one of the biggest positions of need through the eyes of most fans. And ESPN's Seth Walder had a whopper for the Commanders to get Trey Hendrickson. If you somehow haven't heard or seen this yet, we will tell you what his trade proposal is and why I think it is a bad idea next here on The Hoffman Show. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. We'll take your calls with thoughts on this as we go here at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. So there's 3 players that could be on the move, 3 vets that could be on the move in the next couple of weeks. Maybe it's something that happens in training camp, but we're all kind of waiting for a Jalen Ramsey trade, a Kirk Cousins trade, and a Trey Hendrickson trade. Now, Hendrickson to me seems like the least likely to move, but he is the one where Washington would be most likely to get involved. Ramsey is going to be a guy that is certainly in a position that Washington could bolster at corner, but they already traded for Marshawn Lattimore. They just drafted Trey Amos. They're not going to be involved in Jalen Ramsey. Kirk Cousins, obviously not going to be involved. They're all set at quarterback, and that's, I think Kirk would come back here at this point. He enjoyed his time in Washington. It's just, the old ownership group and whatever. But there's no need to bring in Kirk Cousins. They have their quarterback room. They like it. And then there's Trey Hendrickson, who I think a lot of Commanders fans and certainly some in the media think that edge rusher is the biggest hole on the Commanders roster. And I don't know that they're necessarily wrong about that, although for reasons that will become clear, I am not very interested in trading for Trey Hendrickson. So, Anthony, what ESPN did, it's an interesting and fun article to read. They had 4 different people, Dan Graziano, Jeremy Fowler, Ben Solak, and their analytics guru, Seth Walder, all propose trades for these 3 players. So it's 12 total trades. And Walder proposed his Trey Hendrickson trade to come to Washington. And for most of the trades, it's Hendrickson for a pair of draft picks. And their second round pick plus going back to Cincinnati, Hendrickson going to the other team. Washington, if anybody hasn't remembered, Washington does not have a second round pick in the 2026 NFL draft because that went to Houston in the Laramie Tunsil trade. So how do you get Trey Hendrickson to Washington without having to give up a second round pick? Seth Walder's answer is you trade Jerzon Newton along with next year's 3rd and a 2027 7th round pick. And I'm going to be as clear as day as I possibly can about this. I hate this deal for Washington. Hate it. 1, you now have no second and no 3rd next year. 2, you're giving up a young, good, cost-effective asset for an older, very expensive, in need of a new contract asset. Washington has the money for Hendrickson. If they wanted to sign him on the open market, if he was a free agent, fine. He's not. I'm not interested in giving up draft capital. I'm certainly not interested in giving up young players, especially one of my best young players. I have a quarterback in his 2nd year. I'm trying to build something sustainable. And I think the other biggest part of this, Anthony, this is the part where I give you a different piece of analysis than you get from everybody else, is I don't think the edge rush thing was the Commanders' biggest problem last year. The reason their defense was inconsistent at best was not because they didn't have a premier edge rusher, because they couldn't stop the run to save their life. Trey Hendrickson is a average run defender. Average. Yes. Would he be their best pass rusher by a mile? And would that be helpful? Sure. But they have made moves to try to solidify the defensive line against the run. If they do that, that is good. That will help their defense far more than had they kept a lot of other pieces and also signed Trey Hendrickson. I am 1,000% out on this deal.
I agree with you. I'm not too fond of, again, giving up the little capital that we do have. And then also for a guy in Trey Hendrickson, if we do trade for him, who's going to want a new contract. So I think it's multifaceted when you look at the both sides of it, just because, again, we would have to give up so much. And then also, how much does he really help with the point that you just laid out in terms of, stopping the run? That was our biggest, problem with our defense last year. Now, scheming up pressure, scheming up blitz, I think that's something Joe Witt did well, but it was also just the fact that we could not stop the run. So it would be great to have Trey Hendrickson, but I don't think we need to, push all our chips in and, have him, here in Washington. I don't think he just instantly makes us a, super contender kind of thing.
No, there's no doubt that he doesn't help you against with what the biggest problem was last year. If you look at run defenses in the NFL last year, the Washington Commanders were third from the bottom in yards allowed. They gave up a total of 2,337 rush yards. Cincinnati last year, which had Trey Hendrickson, was better because they weren't one of the worst two, but they gave up 2,122 yards, about 4.4 yards per carry. In fact, if we go yards per carry here, Washington was the 5th worst team. Cincinnati was the 17th worst team. If you look at rushing touchdowns given up last year, Washington was down at 11th. Cincinnati gave up the 9th most rushing touchdowns. In terms of EPA per attempt, if you want to get into some more advanced stats, the Commanders were the 7th worst team in the league last year. Cincinnati was, where did they go? Did I pass them already? They were somewhere in the middle of the pack. Hold on. SIN. Oh, they were 5th worst. They were actually worse than Washington last year in EPA per attempt. So that's bad. Trey Hendrickson doesn't solve all of your rushing problems. And if you want to get deeper into the data, for instance, outside runs, like outside zone, Washington, worst in the league last year. 6.2 yards per attempt given up on outside zone last year. These stats courtesy of FTN. Cincinnati was 6th worst. They gave up 5 yards a carry. So even if you look at, is that all on Trey Hendrickson? Of course not. But it is something where, hey, how well do you stop this thing coming right at you? Not very well. So if the Achilles heel is the run defense, Trey Hendrickson's not your guy. I mean, you can look at PFF numbers. You can just watch the tape. Like, he's not bad. He's just not going to set a really hard edge. He's not like this instinctive, really crazy making plays run defensive guy. It's just not who he is. Now, what he does as a pass defender is great. You get in pass rush situations, and he gets sacks. Something the Commanders have struggled with. Getting in the situations and getting the sacks. But if you get in the situations, then you have more opportunities. And now with hopefully a better back end, more options in the blitz packages, and some guys inside that hopefully are ready to have big years, we can see a lot more production on the defensive side. So, first, do you think that this trade is a good idea? Would you do this? Jerzon Newton and a 3rd-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, 301-230-0980. And we can take your calls, or we can talk about some of the inside guys, talk about Newton, talk about Daron Payne, and we'll do all of that next. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. All right, if you want to chime in on this conversation, 301-230-0980 is where you do it. Also today in the show, Jonathan Jones, the Commanders' new defensive back. I chatted with him after practice. We'll let you hear it, maybe even next, depending on how things go here. John Keim, 5:30, pick 6 at 6 coming, so got plenty to shuffle around today here on the show. But again, you can get in at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. So Seth Walter proposes this trade. Trey Hendrickson comes to Washington for Trezon Newton draft picks. And I'm just 1,000% out. And I think part of the reason I'm out is, again, the biggest problem, like if this is Khalil Mack and it's 3 years ago, different discussion. Khalil Mack, an outstanding run defender, one of the best edge setters in the last 2 decades of the NFL. Trey Hendrickson's not that. Trey Hendrickson's a sack master, which is a very valuable skill, but he's not a full, complete defensive end type. So I'm out on this. But the other part about this is with the interior guys, letting them cook a little bit. And I know we've heard this story before. Oh, let Allen and Payne be your pass rush. And, there were some obviously pretty good defenses that they had with those guys doing a lot of damage inside. We know that in the contract year in 2022, Daron Payne had 11.5 sacks, career year. But realistically, he has been a pretty consistent pass rusher over his career in terms of pressures, pressure percentage, hurries, hits outside of 2022 when a lot more of those converted for whatever reason into sacks. And obviously, if you can get an extra 0.2 of a second on the back end, that can happen in any given season. It's also a contract year for Daron Payne again. And today, there was a lot of talk from Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. on how good Payne has looked. Also, I was listening this morning to Mina Kimes on her show and did X Factors for every single team in the NFC. And hers was Trezon Newton and said, hey, if this guy who was really, really highly touted coming out of Illinois, a player that some people had as a top 15 draft pick who fell in large part due to injuries, if he now with a full off season of health under his belt, as opposed to the injuries he had last year, plus what experience he got last year can make a jump, this D-line all of a sudden gets pretty interesting looking as opposed to the dearth of talent that most people see it as. Again, we've gone through this exercise before, so I'm not going to pretend like this is a new revelation. I'm more concerned about the back seven than the front seven of this. So, take what you want out of the linebacker group that is involved in both. But I'm certainly more concerned about the secondary than I am the defensive line. And so to give up a good young piece of that defensive line plus draft capital that you don't really have to get a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, I'm just not that interested.
Yeah, when you say you're more, confident in the D-line than the back end, I guess we haven't seen Trey Amos. We haven't seen, Mikey in the slot. I guess there are a lot of questions surrounding it.
Yeah.
But my thing is also what gives you confidence in, the guys that we've brought in kind of thing, because you haven't seen them play together. You haven't seen how they match up against the run, how they.
But I've seen Dietrich Wise be a really solid NFL player. I know what he is for better part of a decade.
Okay.
I've seen Daron Payne for the better part of a decade. I feel pretty good about where Johnny Newton is based off of last year playing the same position that he did last year. I think that this staff knows Javon Kinlaw better than other places that he's been, and I'm hoping that they can put him in positions where he is, they know what he is, but they also know what he isn't. And so hopefully he can do the is and not be asked to do the isn't. Guys like Eddie Goldman, Eddie Goldman's a very specific football player, but he's brought in for a very specific reason. And so what I'm hoping is that a bunch of C to B minus, and maybe in Johnny and Daron's case, they're hoping B plus players, if not A players, together make a pretty good unit. And those guys all are going to rotate a ton and be very fresh at all times, which is very helpful on a D line. So they roll really deep, and I think they've got 9, 10, 11 good, like average NFL football players or better. I have no idea if Trey Amos is going to be any good. He's a rookie. Mike Sanders still's playing a new position. Marshawn Lattimore, if he is what he is last year, is not good. And that's before you get, like, Quan, feel good about. Will Harris, feel solid about, but new team, he can do a bunch of stuff, but what are you going to actually ask him to do? And, like, Quan hasn't been practicing these last 2 weeks, and so all of a sudden, you're, like, at Percy Butler and Jeremy Reeves real fast. And I love those two dudes as special teams players. Revo's, like, one of the best dudes in the locker room and just best dudes, period. But, like, if he's playing safety, I'm hoping it's the last preseason game and not a regular season game. It is. All-pro special teamer, second or third string safety. They're different skill sets. And so, from a depth standpoint, I think you are in the floor is a lot lower in the secondary. And I don't know how much higher the ceiling is. And that's the difference. Where I feel like, yeah, the ceiling's pretty low on the front end, unless Johnny becomes like a Pro Bowler and Duran has a repeat of 2022, which is possible. Kinlaw has some kind of resurgence as he hits his prime at 27. Like, there's a world where that happens, but probably not terribly high, but the floor's pretty high. There's no floor for the secondary. It could bust. It could just flat out bust. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Paul in D.C. Paul, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
All right, how's it going, man? It's always good to get you, man, because you're always on them great subjects, man.
Appreciate that.
For a third pick and 7th pick in 27, and Newton, I would be considering that. I was, especially when I called, but when I got on hold and I started listening to you and talking about what they was talking about, Newton making some, progress and everything. Now I'm interested in trying to see how that looked. Then you jumped about the backfield. Okay, so you kind of like just keep changing my thoughts on this thing because everything you're talking about is relevant. I do want to see what the heck that backfield looks like because that gave me nightmares even before I started thinking about talking about the run. But as of right now, I will consider that trade, man. But it's still on the table for me, man.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, you got it, Paul. And the thing is, like, Trey Hendrickson's great, a great player. You have to at least consider it. I'm not saying that, like, you're out of your mind. I just am definitively a no. If you want to make the counter argument, like if I'm trying to argue for the trade, oh, you're worried about your back end. Wouldn't you like a pass rush? Yeah, of course. But I think that belies a next level analysis of this, which is the best way to protect your secondary is to make sure that you're in good down and distance, that you're not set up in second and short where a team has their entire playbook open. You have to play the run because it's 2nd and 3, and that exposes you big time on play action pass and deep shots down the field. Like, if it's 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10 because I got to run stuff and force an incompletion, well, now I can dedicate extra bodies to coverage, or I can really crank up the heat with some exotic blitz looks, and I don't necessarily need Trey Hendrickson for that. The guys I have are fine because it's the scheme that's going to win, not the players. And so the best way to consistently avoid bad situations is to be good against the run on 1st and 2nd down especially. And that's where I think that this defense needs to take a huge leap compared to last year, and why I like the pointed moves that they've made. But I also do think there's some pass rush upside with guys like Kinlaw, guys like Payne, guys like Newton, and I'm curious to see how they get deployed together and amongst each other here in 2025. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I got a quick chat with Jonathan Jones that I think we're going to let you hear next, but it is fairly quick, so if we want to get another call in, we got time. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980 here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. John Keim going to talk about some of the biggest Commander storylines coming up at 5:30 here on the Team 980 with us for Not My Beat. Right now, I get to share an interview I did today after practice with new Commanders defensive back Jonathan Jones. With Jonathan Jones after OTAs. Jonathan, I wanted to talk to you. I'm sure you've been asked about culture a ton since you've been here. Obviously, the culture, super important in New England where you came from, something they've emphasized a lot here. What's similar about the two places? And then what's different? Because, you hear good culture. There's more than one way you can build that. So what's similar? What's different?
Yeah, like you said, both cultures are a big influence in both programs. And I think to have a good team, a good program, starts with great leadership. And we have that here. Coach Quinn just being a great leader, being able to command guys, having the respect of the locker room. It starts there. And then the guys buying in. Everywhere talks of brotherhood and family, but it's intentional here. You can see that the guys mean it, whether it's in the meetings, outside of the meetings. And so when you build that type of camaraderie, it just helps the program.
I'm sure you wouldn't have signed here if you didn't think it was real, but were there some early signs when you got here? You're like, okay, good, didn't make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, as an outsider last year, it was something special to watch, just to see how the guys were flying around for each other and the plays that they were making. And I, doing a lot of winning in my career, I know that it has to be something special in the locker room for it to transfer out on the field. And so once I got here, I could see, what was so special about this locker room. Just the guys in here, it's a bunch of great guys. Just come in every day, work hard, compete, and that shows up on the field.
Especially in something like a defensive back room where communication is so important. How does the off-the-field stuff, relationships, whatever else you want to throw into that bucket, how does it actually translate to winning on the field?
Oh, so much. In the back end, it's all about trust, trusting each other, trusting, like you said, the communication is going to be made. And so you build that in the meeting rooms when you're away from here, and then that carries over on the field. And so it starts with trust.
Jonathan Jones with us here on the Hoffman Show on the Team at 980. Speaking of that back end, you got a good young guy like Sanders still. Does he remind you of you a little bit? A guy who play inside, outside, kind of maybe wise beyond his years. That's something you've always been, had on you. Is a maturity, leader kind of characteristics. Does he remind you of a young you?
Yeah. I mean, he comes in, doesn't say much, but you can tell he's listening, he's paying attention, and just comes out and works. And when you're young in your career, that's all you try to do is just show up, work hard, and earn the respect of the coaches and the other players.
What also, makes this coaching staff so good on the back end? Dan's got a great history with DBs. Obviously, Joe has a great history with DBs. Then you have your actual DB coaches. So what is it about this scheme, this staff, the way they teach, the way they coach that seems to hit so well with players on the back end?
Yeah, I think it's simplifying it, not just from a scheme standpoint, but simplifying it in communication. So Coach always harps on, getting the word across in least words as possible. And I think effective communication is a good way to teach guys, whether it's new guys like myself coming in or younger guys, just to get everybody on the same page. And you can see that they're intentional, about making sure that communication is right and everybody's on the same page.
What's it like for you being a new guy?
Feels a little new. Feels a little refreshing, I can say. But it's a good start, from where I'm at in my career. It's a good change of scenery, enjoying meeting everybody in the building, and just kind of starting over.
Have you had a chance to explore D.C., the greater DMV area at all yet?
No, me and the wife got down. We went to the White House, took the kids down there, but we'll get out and explore a little bit more and get out here and see what's about.
Wrap it up here. Jaden, watching him year two, you've obviously been around some great quarterbacks. You've been around the greatest quarterback, arguably, of all time, maybe inarguably of all time. What are some things that stand out about Jaden, watching the way he works and nevertheless having to, go against him in practice every day?
Yeah, he has composure. I think everyone saw that from his rookie year, and it's going to do nothing but build into year two. And from a defensive standpoint, we get better when we work against, good people at practice. And like you alluded to, coming against playing, some great players on offense at practice every day, it makes the defense better. And we're getting that here, good work against, our offense, the guys we have at skill positions, quarterback. It makes our job tough, so it's going to make us a better team.
And then last thing is kind of the big concept for you guys in the back end is the interchangeable pieces. You have guys like Will who can basically do everything. You played some safety, some corners, some outside corners, some nickel. What's it like this time of year to cross-train, and then how does that ultimately help you when you get to the fall, on top of the coaches being able to say, all right, this is our best group, they're doing evaluating, but for you as a player, how does that ultimately help you?
Yeah, I think it comes down to learning the concept. When you can play multiple positions, you really understand the concept of the defense, and it does nothing but helps you and also add value to you. And then add value to the team. You know, when guys can play multiple positions, you get into the season, you deal with injuries, you know, whatever may happen. Being able to move guys around and not miss a beat is very important.
And then when you sign, like, were you told, hey, this is the kind of thing that we're considering? You know, then Trey gets drafted, so now you got a different guy in the room. Like, what are those conversations like throughout the free agent process and then throughout the spring here of how all that interchangeability actually plays out here on the field?
Yeah, it was, you know, the conversation was just, you know, I told him I'm signing to be a football player. You know, I just love to play football. Wherever you need me, put me on the field, and it's my job to execute. So, like you said, we brought in some guys who can help, and so hopefully we can tighten up the back end and go for it.
Jonathan Jones, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, that was with Jonathan Jones after practice today. We'll get to more of what was said coming up in our Pick 6 at 6. John Keim also was in all the media sessions today. Obviously, he's been in them for 30 years in Ashburn. Keim going to join us at 5:30. Up next, though, after Tom Thibodeau's firing yesterday, we're asking a question. Do NBA coaches have the worst job in sports? We'll discuss with someone who wrote an article about why they're being blamed for seemingly everything next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our top story today is Commanders OTAs. Typically, we do 5 o'clock, not my beat, top story. We're going to hit that at 5:30 with John Keim from ESPN. It was great to hang out with Cakes today out in Ashburn, and he said he'd come on the show, just couldn't do 5 o'clock, so we're going to switcherooski here and do what was kind of our top story yesterday in terms of the way the news broke. Tom Thibodeau was fired. We talked about it and kind of talked about some of the bigger structural forces at play in the league and why someone like Tibbs is both one of the best coaches in the league, but also you understand why he got fired. And luckily for us, someone else has been thinking about these things too. And so with that, we bring in Colin Sauer, who writes for Front Office Sports and actually wrote an article in April with a different theory about why, at the time, coaches like Taylor Jenkins in Memphis and Mike Malone in Denver were getting the boot. So, Colin, first of all, hello, and thank you for your time. Welcome to the show.
Of course. Glad to know someone else is thinking about the same things as me.
Yes, indeed. It just took me an extra 2 months to get there and one extra coach getting fired. So for background for the audience, Colin, you write about business, sports business things, and a lot of basketball, but sports business at Front Office Sports. Why do you think that the business side of the NBA might be intersecting with some of the basketball and specifically coaching decisions?
I think it's always been intersecting. I think anyone who's a fan knows that what we don't know, but what we kind of sort of see is that owners are dictating the way that our teams operate. But when owners dictate things, the general managers have to, abide by those things. And now it just so happens that in the NBA, there's aprons that came out in the salary cap structure in the 2023 CBA that are really making it a lot more difficult to make moves. So I think that generally, you have to be able to look at all those different factors when you're talking about building your roster. That ultimately is what we all cheer for and want when we want our teams to win.
So when you look at a team, let's say, let's go with the two that you wrote about back in April. Let's say you're looking at the Grizzlies, you're looking at the Nuggets. Can you flesh that out for people? Why would they're a second apron team make you want to say, fire Mike Malone?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with this. The Nuggets are the prime example of a team that's been worried about the salary cap and these aprons for years, right after they win the championship, right? They win a title, and the first thing they do is not bring back Bruce Brown, not pay him. And then a year later, they don't bring back Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they rely on, Christian Brown, who played, very, very well this year, but it's kind of cut their depth down. And if you really look into the weeds, it's because they were trying to make sure that their money, was not going to exceed certain aprons, or they could be more flexible as it went forward. Now, you can make the case that that this is something that teams have been doing for years, and not just now. But if you go earlier in the season, GMs answered a GM survey. We're all about these surveys now, as we know, with the Tyrese Halliburton being overrated type survey. And the GMs answered a survey, and their biggest concern was these aprons and how it's affecting roster construction and roster flexibility. And you see it in the moves. So when the Nuggets did that, they, kind of trimmed down their roster, and you see the effects. They had the best player in the league and still weren't able to win a championship, make it past the second round for 2 years in a row. What else can they do except fire their coach and hopefully go a different direction? And I think that a lot of teams are kind of looking at it that way. Not to say, again, that that's not been done before, but I think you can't argue that there's an effect from these second aprons.
Colin Sawa with us from Front Office Sports here on the Hoffman Show. So the thing I talked about yesterday with Thibodeau, Colin, which is kind of where the rubber meets the road on all of this, is he just got them on the verge of the NBA Finals. If they don't blow Game 1, who knows? We might be talking about a Game 7, maybe even the Knicks win it in 6. Like we don't know. Game 1 was not only enormous in terms of there's only 6 or 7 of them in a series, and that's a large percentage if you lose one, but the demoralization that happened to New York, and that game swung on a couple of plays, including a goaltend that wasn't called in the Knicks' favor. Right. So, the margins are very, very slim, but if you listen to some of the reporting around a coach like Tibbs, there's also a lot of problems. So, when these owners make these decisions, they're like, oh, the coach that we have isn't good enough to get this roster to where we want to go, and they decide to blame the coach, not the roster. And a guy like Tom Thibodeau, who's widely considered one of the better coaches in the league, even with his flaws, isn't good enough. Are there enough good coaches to go around?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I tweeted it yesterday after the news. I was like, to a certain extent, you can make the case as to why you would let go of someone like Tom Thibodeau, who, he's never really like as much as good as he's been. Like, you could say that maybe he caps your team, he has a ceiling, something like that. But who's out there? There's always this argument with all-star snubs. Like, if you're a snub, who are you taking out of the all-star game? I'll say the same thing with this. Who is coming in? Some people have said Michael Malone, but he kind of coaches the same way as Tibbs. So I kind of just come from a standpoint of, I just really agree with you because, we really don't know, and you have to look for a replacement. That being said, we didn't know who Mark Daigneault was before he came onto the Thunder, and you have to give him a lot of credit for who they, what the team that they've become. Steve Kerr joined the Warriors and turned them into that team. So we might not just be privy to some of these things and be reactive to what's happened now. But I just think that the Knicks haven't really shown that they've been good at choosing certain things like this, so it's hard to trust that.
Right. If you're a team like New York and you're like, oh, we're so close, we need an established veteran coach. It's like, you mean someone who's been fired? Because you're either haven't coached yet or you've already coached before, and that typically only ends one way. So, if you're thinking about the way NBA teams should move here, Colin, would you just continue to take flyers? Not flyers. That's too that assumes that you're just guessing, right? These are very, very smart people in front offices around the league. And They have wide networks of people that they know. They watch other teams. They understand who is helping who in terms of player development, or maybe that guy's got a great reputation for, drawing up plays, scheme, whatever. So it's not flyers, but ultimately you don't know until they're in the chair. Would you just be taking, to then use the word, flyers on young guys? Would you be targeting specific organizations? Be like, oh, we just get the next guy on the Thunder bench. How would you be approaching it if we understand how hard it is based off the roster mechanics, and that you need to have a really good coach to win in this league?
I think that based on the roster of the Knicks, you have to get the veteran that's out there, because you already know that these Villanova boys on the Knicks and Cat, these are veterans that want a proven commodity on the team. I think, I mentioned Mark Daigneault, but he came into a Thunder team that didn't have established players, with all due respect to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the time. So he still had time to earn their respect. Whereas if you have a veteran team, one that clearly respects Tom Thibodeau, clearly has a good relationship with him, if you're removing him from the roster, I think all you can do is look for a coach that has championship pedigree, like a Michael Malone, that can come in and maybe change something. But I think to your point as well, we've seen teams do this in recent years. Look at the Phoenix Suns and what's happened to them. Firing coaches year after year, coaches with veteran experience, with championship rings, and it still doesn't work out. So you can't promise it. And I'm as baffled as you about it, but that's the league we're in.
So as we wrap with Colin Sauer here on the Hoffman Show, if we get back to the structure at play here, the system at play, like I think there is growing frustration within the NBA about these aprons. Like nobody likes it. Maybe the owners do, and if the owners do, then like good luck. But ultimately, I think a lot of teams, and you referenced in your article, Wick Grossbeck of the Celtics saying he is like, I'll pay the tax bill. We can't do basketball stuff. This is bad. Do you think that ultimately they will reverse course the next time the CBA comes up to try to undo this because it seems to be doing more harm than good? Or is it accomplishing exactly what the NBA wants, where there are no super teams that can be built? You're always one injury seemingly away, like the Celtics, from having to blow up a really good team. And we're theoretically going to, get even more parity when we've already now secured 7 champions in 7 years. Is this actually working the way the NBA wants, both in that it's doing what it set out to and it's good for the league?
Yeah, I think that when they come to the table and discuss this, I think the owners and the GMs and the executives are going to be the ones to be like, we need to make change. Because it's difficult. Like you said, Wick Grossbeck has talked about it themselves, and I think they're starting to realize just how impactful this is. Now, from Adam Silver's perspective, from the league's perspective, they like parity. That was the whole point of doing this. They were so, shocked at how players and teams were mad at what happened in 2016 with KD going to Golden State, that they needed to find a way to not build super teams, and that's where we are now. And we kind of are in this cycle of, hey, it worked, but did it work too much? There's too much parity. So I think there's going to be a world where some teams and owners complain. And in fact, the teams that are kind of being faced with this are all teams, the Celtics or the Nuggets and the Grizzlies. So again, it achieved that parity, but I think it's getting to a point where it might be like, well, we are stuck. So I see a world where they're going to push back. I definitely see a world. But if you're the NBA, it did what you wanted. I can also see them being like, hey, we're fine with this. I think ultimately what happens is there are going to be tweaks. There might be changes to some of these penalties that come with it, like losing certain draft picks or not being able to compile salaries and trades for second apron teams. But I think you'll see some of these penalties stay, maybe not framed in the same way as like a first or a second apron.
Interesting. That's definitely going to be something to watch, because I think the NBA is at its best when there can be dynasties, when there can be teams that you root for over a long period of time. You establish rivalries. I mean, no one would have put the Cavs and Warriors as a great NBA rivalry, but it's the one that defined the 2010s. And if you're eliminating the possibility for that to happen, I actually don't think that's a good thing for the league, even if you're getting more parity. So TBD on that one. Colin Sauer, writing for Front Office Sports. Colin, this was great. Appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, anytime.
That's Colin Sauer, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. John Keim in about a little more than 15 minutes at 5:30. I want to talk more about what Colin and I just talked about next here on the Team 980. Thanks again to Colin Sowow for joining us here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980 always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Odyssey, A-U-D-A-C-Y. I said it like Odyssey, like it had a T in it, Anthony. I don't know. I think I just say it so often. I'm like, I gotta mix it up a little bit, add a little variety. I heard it's the spice of life.
Remix.
Something like that. John Keim coming up at 5:30 here to talk Commanders OTAs. And, Anthony, before we do that, following up on what we talked about with Colin, you posted an interesting question pre-show, which is kind of the premise in some ways, in a twisted way, of Colin's article, which is NBA head coach just the worst job in sports? Because I gave you this pop quiz. I'll give it to the audience now, although unlike you, the audience is not going to be able to respond directly. So, audience, speak to your car radios or your YouTube screens or however, your phone. It's listening anyway. Who are the three most tenured coaches in the NBA right now? First one's easy. Now that Pop is retired and moved in the front office. That is, Anthony?
Eric Spoelstra.
Right. That one you got. Everyone should get that. Spo's been in charge of the Heat for 20 years at this point. Could be another 20. Like, dude's incredible. One of the best 15 coaches ever. when the NBA did their NBA 75. They did 75 players, 15 coaches. He was on the list, deserved to be. Awesome. The second longest tenured coach also makes sense because he took over in, I believe it was 2013, 2014, might have been 12, 13, in replacing Mark Jackson as the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, and that's Steve Kerr. The third one, it would have taken me a while to get had I not seen this posted. And you got the guy who was fourth. It was a good guess, but Ty Lue took over the Clippers 10 games in to the season where Billy Donovan had started the Bulls' job from go. 2020, 2021, I believe, was the season. And, yeah, the answer is Billy Donovan is the third most tenured coach in the league. He's been on the job less than 5 years. This 25-26 will be his, well, actually, is he 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 20. Yeah, it'll be his sixth season on the job. And he's the third longest guy in the league. Then you have Ty Lue after that. And then I don't even know who's next. But you have guys like Michael Malone who have won championships or has won a championship. He also got fired in Sacramento after they had, like 2 years prior, one of their best years that they ever had. You have Tibbs, who's had the best season. Let's see. He's had the best Bulls season since 2010. The best Wolves season, I believe, until the last two. So at least they've replaced him with someone else who has taken it to the next level, which does seem relevant. And then the best Knicks season since 1999. Best Bulls season since 99 too, by the way. Since Jordan retired, was the Derrick Rose. Was he the head coach? Yeah, he was the head coach for those teams. So, long story short, like, you can be pretty good at this and also not good enough. And I think when you start to get into the why, a lot of it is just like NBA owners seem to want to blame people, and or are the executives bad at hiring? That's my other question. I mean, this is something where I actually give the Wizards credit over the years. Like, when they hired Scott Brooks, no one was like, oh, man, this guy's one of the best coaches. But, like, Scott Brooks is a good coach. Scott Brooks Brooks in Oklahoma City took them to an NBA Finals. How bad can you really be? And, like, also, I think this is the other thing. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's put 3 guys on a scale of 1 to 10. 2 that are failures that have not won NBA championships, and 1 that has won a singular NBA championship. The 3 names are Scott Brooks, Tom Thibodeau, and Doc Rivers. Scale of 1 to 10. How good of an NBA coach is Doc Rivers?
He's overrated in my eyes.
I agree. I think he's like an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
How good's Tom Thibodeau?
I have him in the same area.
I think he's also an 8 out of 10. How good is Scotty Brooks?
I have him in the same area.
I think he's probably like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I'd probably put him third, but it ain't the gap's not that different. How good's Michael Malone?
Same.
Like 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think he's better than all of them, but not by that much. Like, there's a bunch of guys that are good coaches. Like, 8 out of 10's good. I'm not saying these guys are 4 out of 10. Right? I mean, shoot, like guys like Randy Whitman back in the day. What is he, a 7? Is he a 6? Like, he's not a 3. So the coaches like the Wizards they've had okay coaches. They've had fine coaches. They've even had, if you want to say if 7 out of 10 is good, they've had good coaches. Right? But they haven't necessarily had the roster, or they haven't made the right moves, or they've had bad injury luck. So there's blame to go around. But who would ultimately get axed? The coach would get axed. Because in the order of operations, and this is now being more general, not to the Wizards, the owner goes to the GM, and the GM has 2 options. The GM, who is directly typically hired by the owner, and then hires the coach, can either go, I did a bad job with the roster, or he didn't coach it up well enough. If you're the GM, what are you going to do? You're going to say, no, we think that we can get more out of this roster. And give me another offseason. I'm making another trade. Like, we'll get a better roster too. Maybe sometimes a GM will go, hey, he did a really good job. This move that we thought didn't work out the way, but like we know what we're doing. We know where we went wrong. We'll run it back. And it depends, because sometimes that's not going to be an option if you want to save your job, because the owner's going to be like, oh, you're the one that messed up? Great. Somebody's getting fired, and now it's you. And so, like, I do kind of think in a way that's different than I don't feel like that happens as much in the NFL. I feel like guys, but I guess it still does. GMs typically have longer leashes. Like, typically owners get unlimited GMs because they own the team. GMs get 2 coaches, typically. If you mess up the first hire, you get to try again. And if you mess up a second hire, at that point, you've probably been bad enough and you've messed up 2 coaching hires that you're probably getting fired. And then the question is the coach also getting fired? Or are they, and you're out together? Or do they go, no, we got a good coach. We just need a better roster. Let's go to the GM. And then do that GM and coach get along? And then you get into like this cycle of terror. If in the NFL, add quarterback to that equation, and that explains like the entire Chicago Bears history. So yeah, like it's a rough gig, man. Now, you're well paid, you're well compensated. There's a lot of good things about being an NBA head coach, but the head job is really hard. You can be pretty good at it, but winning an NBA title, as we've talked about, I think is the hardest thing in sports. Nevertheless, winning multiples. And so you're just going to not satisfy what ownership is looking for a lot. And that's going to eventually cost you your job probably 3 to 4 years at a time. It's just not common that you get, hey, we got this build that we're working on. Sweet. Brett Brown was a great assistant in San Antonio, gets the Philly job under the premise that like, hey, dude, like you're going to help us build this thing up and we think you're the man. And so you're going to stick with us through the hard times to be there for the good times. And then after like 1 year of good times, they're like, see ya. Brutal.
It is definitely cruel. We've seen coaches go to the NBA Finals and still get axed.
There's a literal Coach of the Year curse.
Yeah.
It was like Dwayne Casey, 2 years later, fired. Monty Williams, 2 years later, fired. Tom Thibodeau, 4 years later, fired. Mike Malone, Frank Vogel. Like, these guys are
champion fired.
Yeah. Vogel's gotten screwed multiple places. But then, like, eventually, 2 years later, when they're going through the interview process after a year of doing analyst work for ESPN or TNT or now, whoever, or going on an assistant bench, you know what happens? Owners and GMs interview a bunch of people, and they're like, hey, you want to know who's really good? Frank Vogel. Which is why, like, a guy like Malone, a guy like Thibodeau get 4 or 5 jobs sometimes. Like, that's not unheard of in the NBA. Or Rick Carlisle circles all the way back to Indy. It's his 4th head coaching job. Detroit, Indy 1, Dallas, Indy 2. It's his 4th job with 3 franchises. He's been one of the best coaches in the league the whole time. 1 title. Because it's hard. Actually, no, we're not taking calls right now. We're taking 1 call. I was about to say we're taking calls on this. We're not. John Keim probably has thoughts on it because John Keim's a huge NBA fan. So I might ask John Keim about this, but then we're going to talk about the Commanders next on the Hoffman Show. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Typically, 5 o'clock is when we do Not My Beat, but sometimes we got to move schedules around. Today, we moved the schedule around, and so it's 5:30, but it's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
John Keim was in Ashburn for Commanders OTAs because, well, it's his beat and has been for 30 years, and I know that because I was there. You're just very reliably there, John. When we come up with the intro of, like, from someone who's there, we know you're going to be there.
I kind of blend in with the woodwork at this point. By the way, I got you to move it from 5 because I'm kind of a diva.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me see if I can get him to move it to 5:30.
It's just a bit. That's all.
There you go.
You've been doing bits in the room for 30 years, and you're like, let's see if we can extend one of these bits outside of the room. I get it. It's fine. Hey, it worked. We had a great conversation about hoops at 5 o'clock. By the way, you're a great person to ask this hypothetical question to, because you are a huge basketball fan and you have been covering the NFL for 30 years. Is head basketball coach in the NBA not actually the worst job in sports? Because, like, you clean janitors in arena. Like, that's probably not a great time after games. But hey, hard day's work, respect. But, like, of the high profile jobs, is head coach in the NBA the worst one? Because I think that you have, like, the third longest tenured coach in the NBA, John, is Billy Donovan in Chicago. And I just feel like in the NFL, there's a little bit more job security, but am I just reacting to maybe Tom Thibodeau getting fired here?
I'm definitely of that mindset too, that it, for sure, because a couple of things, like, I think NBA players have more power because the contracts they have. And so I think if there's an issue, they're probably more prone to go try and take care of it, right? They have more power to take care of it than I think almost all football players do outside of a couple guys. So I think I think it's also hard, like, they're with the players for really, like, if you're really good, you're with them for 10 months or 9 months. Like, that message, unless you're winning, I can see it getting stale, or maybe the personalities become a bigger issue. I think in football, there's more of a buffer between the head coach and the players. And, like, guy like Dan Quinn is very interactive with the players, but not every coach is like that. So, like, you might get tired of the message a little bit, but your position coach is really where it's at. So I just think and then it's like it's a shorter season, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, no, I definitely think the NBA coaches, like, Thibodeau gets to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're bouncing them after 4 years. Like, they progressed to this point. And maybe everybody thinks because it worked for the Bulls with Doug Collins, then replaced by Phil Jackson, that anybody can do it, but it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I think winning a championship in the NBA is the hardest thing in sports.
Yeah.
I think it's harder than winning a Super Bowl. I think it's harder than anything else because, like, the number of guys that can help you get there is so small. But all right, back to the day job, John. So for I'm going to try to not do the thing that we all do, which is lament the questions that we get asked when we go to, say, an OTA session, and it's like, I can't believe that I have to go on show X and then I get asked this question Y, and then we all do either our own show or, in your case, your own podcast, and we realize that those are the best questions to ask, so we just ask the same one. So I'm going to try to ask you some different stuff based off of what we've seen. We'll see if I can accomplish it. Last year, the Commanders' attendance was really high. It was basically 100% for all the voluntary work. It is year 2 of this regime. We are seeing not just the 3 big names that we saw last week, but we've seen guys like Eddie Goldman hasn't been there. Javon Kinlaw wasn't there today. Michael Gallup wasn't there today. Why do you think that is? Is that a year 2 thing? Is that a more veteran roster thing? Like, what substance do we think is actually on the bone here to why this is the case this particular year?
Well, first of all, if Gallup was there, I think he was dealing with something. And I think the same is true of Kinlaw. So that's not a...
Okay, so we got more info post-practice that they were in the building, just not on the field. Got it.
Yeah, I don't know if Kinlaw, but I know that there's, like, just something like apparently very, very minor. So it's not a big deal, but, like, that's So it wasn't a I'm skipping it kind of thing.
Got it.
But it is, most of the guys you mentioned, they're all new. I mean, for whatever reason, like they're all the newcomers except for Terry McLaurin. And then obviously in his case, it's contract. Tunsil, this is what he did in Houston. Lattimore, this is what he did the last few years in New Orleans. And you can make the case that, based on what happened here, that it might be wise for him to be here. Still voluntary. It's been what he's done. I think one of the saving graces for this group is, listen, man, I've been here when they've had 100% attendance and they didn't play very well. So it doesn't always correlate. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we get to September and if Lattimore picks off a pass and returns it for a pick six, I don't think the first question after the game is like, do you think you could have had 2 pick sixes if you were here in May? You know what I mean? So, but I think because there's so many questions about him, and I don't think those questions would have been answered this spring regardless. Like we need to know, can he stay healthy? You don't know what level will he play at. Those are all things we'll find out in the fall. He just has to report here in shape. But one of the saving graces is, one, this group has been together for a year now. Like they know Terry McLaurin very well. They know what he's going to do. They know he knows the offense, et cetera. So I think Quinn is very good at communicating with players, guys who aren't here. He's very good with that. So I think all of that helps. I will say though, like there was a big deal made out of 100% attendance. So it is like, note it when they're not here, but you also know it's voluntary. And as long as they have number 5, a couple of guys can miss and they'll be okay. But I do think, Craig, like, for just stretching it out further, like a guy like Tunsil, you know what he's going to do. And the hard part for the line is, what you really want to see is how you have to learn the guy next to you, right? Like, so he's going to have to learn Brandon Coleman, and the only way you're going to really do that is when you're in pads, as far as like how you handle situation in the field, right? And then I think for Lattimore, again, the thing for him would be like, yeah, it would have been nice to be here after, injuries and some struggles, but, voluntary, so he's not.
Totally. John Keim, ESPN.com, and ESPN with us here on the Hoffman Show. And that's the thing is if they can get to, like, ultimately you're trying to get to 100%, right? Like 100% of knowing each other. And if you can do that in training camp, then who cares? If you were to get to 100% by the 4th day of training camp, if you had been here in the spring and it takes you till the 14th day, the date that matters is in September. And so, yes, optimal versus like a problem, I think, are two very different things here. I also do think it's also not nothing, I think, when coaches try to kind of push it to the side, because like Bobby Wagner's still here. Like if Bobby Wagner's here, Bobby Wagner's still here, then why isn't anyone else here? I go back and forth on it, on I think how important it is, and I've been doing this for a decade now. You've been doing it for more than a decade. So where do you land on it?
Well, I think it's always important, because I would have a hard time knowing, like, hey, 89 of my teammates are there and I'm not. Like, I would feel funny about that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So I think there's that. But then there's the other part where I felt like the seeds of the success last year were definitely planted in the spring. And it wasn't because, like, oh, they're learning the offense. It goes way deeper than that. Like, that was as close a team as you're going to be that I have ever covered. And why is it? Well, you start to bond during this time. And I thought they were really good at doing things that fostered those bonds, or guys got to know one another in a different way. Like, guys would hang out after practice and just get to know each other because they wanted to be there. Like, that's when you really start to see it. That's those are like it's not just the on-field work. And then, like, you watch a scene after practice, and I talk about this on a podcast, but, like, you have Mike Samerstill and Deebo Samuel working against one another after practice. You can see some of that certainly in training camp. Like, it's not the only time you can get that, but as the season gets closer, it's harder to get some of that stuff, because guys, they got to get off the field because they may have to go get treatment. They may have to go do this. You may have to go do that. You have a meeting, so you can't linger out there as long sometimes. This is when you can do all that stuff. And like, as they talk about, now this is good for guys like a Tyler Owens or Will Harris, like the experimentation aspect. This is when they want to see, okay, what can you do? Now with Tunsil, he blocks people. That's what he does, right? You know what I mean? Like Lattimore, you got to cover people. And again, if he was here, it'd be nice. But would we know? Would you? You know, maybe you'd feel differently if like he's going up against Terry, for example, and like, oh my gosh, he looks really good. But Terry's not here, so you know you're not going to go up against that caliber of. And Debo is a different type of receiver, right? He's not necessarily the kind of guy that Lattimore will cover. So not to me, I'm not. So but the point is like, are there things that could be done? Yes. Are there other things that we wouldn't have learned if he had been here? We still wouldn't know durability and where's his game really at, because you want to see it against the A.J. Browns, the Mike Evans, guys like that.
John Keim. Of course, you also check out the John Keim Report podcast wherever you get your pods with us here on the Hoffman Show. Will Harris is a guy that I'm pretty fascinated with, John, because I liked what I saw on tape. He is lining up all over the place, which is what I would have expected. And I am trying to remind myself how good Jeremy Chin was at very important things that you are just not going to see this time of year because they're not in pads. Like, what's the drop-off, but also what are the potential additions that you think are capable on that back end with Will Harris based off of what you saw on tape and, like, kind of thought going into the spring and now that we've seen him a couple times out there on the field?
So with Will Harris, first of all, I felt like when I watched him, like, and it's funny, there are three guys that I really felt like this about. Like, that's a Dan Quinn type player. And the three were Will Harris, Jonathan Jones, and Dietrich Wise. You know, and now that's not saying the others, but like those three to me jumped out as far as like these are the kind of guys that he really, you know, fancies, right? Because the toughness, all that. Go back and watch Will Harris against this team when they were down there in December, and he laid out some guys. Like, he plays tough. The difference between he and Chin's bigger. He's got about 15 pounds, something like that. So you could use him as a big nickel, more in the box, you know, against run, et cetera. But I think there's more versatility with Will Harris in coverage. And I think that's one thing I asked Quinn about afterwards is about getting guys like Harris and Amos. How does that open up what you can do coverage-wise? You know, because I do think it lends more versatility to the coverage schemes. The way you can, because like Jeremy to me really progressed. I felt like he started somewhat slow. You would see signs of the physical play, and then you'd see it, and then but he slowly kept putting it together, and made himself valuable. But I think the way you're going to have to try and replace him is, do you have some linebacker types who can fill that role? Can you play with a Jordan McGee and feel good out there as a third linebacker in lieu of a big safety? And how does that, like if you're going up against a big personnel package, they might have to use Jeremy Chin in the past in the box. Well, now maybe you can use Jordan McGee. So now maybe does that help the run defense a little bit more? If he can do that, Keim Medrano, can he fill a big nickel role where you don't have to use three safeties, maybe use two safeties and a hybrid linebacker safety type in Medrano, right? Like that he's a perfect description of that big nickel because he can run, you know, he's got athleticism and he's got the size of like, he's like about 220, 225, something like that. So can you replace him that way? Now it's asking a lot for, I just mentioned two guys who had, you know, McGee was hurt last year, Medrano a lot last year, and then Medrano was a rookie. Can they do that? You know, can Tyler Owens help in that role? So I think there's ways, I think you have some internal possibilities to replace him, but I think the coverage versatility will be enhanced.
I agree. Dominique Hampton, another name to watch, obviously converted from safety down to linebacker. They had laughing with Logan today because there was a one rep of I think it was 7-on-7. It might have been when they were in 11s, where Medrano and Hampton were the two linebackers. And I was like, yes, the safety who is converted to linebacker and the linebacker who might convert to safety out there together. So we'll see how all those guys get used. A layer up in the defense. That was kind of the talk of the press conferences today with the D-line. Joe Witt speaking as well as Dan Quinn. Everyone will hear what they had to say coming up in our Pick 6 at 6 in about 12 minutes from now. But there was the talk kind of at Ashburn today, but also the talk like on these airwaves as your colleague Seth Walder, as part of a larger piece that some of your ESPN colleagues did, proposed a Trey Hendrickson trade for Washington that would see them give up Johnny Newton in a third-round pick to get Hendrickson back. So when you think about this D-line, John, how comfortable are you with where they're at now? And what were, like, to you, the most important things said by either Joe or Dan today about where the pressure could come from and kind of the strength of that D-line?
One, I don't see that trade. So
I don't either, but that's we don't need to waste our time on it. I already did that earlier in the show. You go ahead.
All right, okay. Yeah, thank you. So with the D-line, like, the one thing I saw, you could see this when they were signing these guys, because I remember talking to somebody at that time about it too, is the versatility of this group. One, they're bigger, so I think, like, if you want to stop the run, get a little bit bigger. And I think they have, like, last year, like, John Allen was playing in the 280s, low, 285-ish maybe, which it's good for a 3-tech, right? But if you're taking on those double teams, trying to stop the run, like, you have, and Johnny Newton's smaller like that, right? Like, they needed some bigger guys. That's not a knock on them. It's just that's what you could use. So Kinlaw, Goldman, you've got some size in there. Dietrich Wise is a defensive end. He's just a sturdy guy. I mean, he's a big dude, right? So I think, like, that's one of the things. But then I also think that there's some versatility with that group. Can you so many people, like, the focus on the pass rush, they didn't lose Myles Garrett, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about, like, as Joe Witt said, nobody at this time last year thought Dante Fowler was going to get 10.5 sacks. Now, he maybe ended up having to play too much because of some depth issues or whatever. I think they're better there. But their pressure packages last year were pretty good. The issue with the defense was stopping the run. And then there was, like, certainly some coverage issues and some blown coverage things and, the whole St. Juice and all that stuff. They're better in those areas. I strongly believe that. Even if Lattimore struggles, I think with Amos and Jonathan Jones, another year of Samerstill, they are better. Those three alone make them better than what they were at the start of last year. So, and then you add, if Lattimore plays well. But I think with the defensive line, then Deron Payne, like, that's the number one thing that he was the number one topic today. And Joe Witt talking about how he and Quan Martin had this laser focus. And I think there's just there's a strong belief, I think, in what Deron Payne can do this year. But I think that size and there's the versatility. Dietrich Wise can rush inside. Dietrich Wise is a pro. And by that, I mean, like, he knows how to handle his business. He's learned along the way. I think that's it, learned how do you defend the run? Like, I had him on the podcast last week and talked about that. Like, just how do you learn, how have you grown? It's like, it's learning to play the run. Like, knowledge he can impart to other young players, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Even Kinlaw, who's still, I don't think he certainly hasn't hit I don't know that he hit his ceiling yet, right? Because I think he's still an evolving guy. And so I think, like, just how to read blocks, where to get your hands, et cetera, like, all that stuff that he knows how to do, that can you impart that? I don't know that we're going to look at this and say, like, wow, this is an awesome defensive line, but it should be better. And I mean, it has to be better, because if it's not, there are going to be problems, but I do think it will be better.
This is
how much better, I don't know.
Yeah, this is hope season. We're hearing this guy's never looked better. This guy's super focused. You've covered Deron Payne's entire career. You've now covered this coaching staff for a year. How much do you believe the, for lack of a better word, hype we're hearing about Deron Payne?
I don't know, because until they get pads on, who the heck knows, right? Like, I think with the offensive line, with running backs, until they get pads on, I mean, Craig, right now, like, I would say me, but I'm a little bit older than you. You could probably go out there and look good as a running back, running some routes. Well, maybe, within reason. But
hey, hand me the ball. I will score a touchdown. If you are running back this time of year, you score a touchdown on every play. It's the best.
Yeah. So like with Deron, I think let's see it. Okay, let's see it. But I do think, I mean, it's a big year for him, because we saw what he responded pretty well with his contract the last time. If he doesn't play well this year, they can get out of his contract. If he plays well, then maybe you extend him, right? And so, like, this is a big year for him. But I just, we'll see. But I think it's still there for him. I think the one in particular that I really intrigued by is Newton, because you saw flashes, and like later in the year in the playoffs, all that, he was definitely flashing, and they talked about him like getting stronger with his leg and all that. Like that can be a big thing for him, and I think having some other big bodies around him can free him up to maybe not have to take on certain things against the run, and I don't know, they're not going to use it as just a situational pass rusher, but you can rotate more and not have a drop off and keep guys like that fresher for later in the game. Like that could help him too. But you're right. Like this is. Listen, man. If your team isn't sounding pretty good right now, there's trouble. But I think because of what they did last year, we know that there's a base of whether it's trust or belief, and like, okay, yeah, that's plausible, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you if I ask you, John, what's the, in hindsight, most laughable positive spin you've heard this time of year in your career? Is there like one particular thing that comes to mind of like, oh yeah, this player who wound up getting cut in training camp or something like that? Does that come to mind?
There was a guy running back years and years and years ago, like named Norman Miller, and it was under North Turner, and like he looked good in the spring. Like talked about what they did, and like I don't think he did not make the roster. So like, it's funny because several years later, Anthony Armstrong comes along and it's like, yeah, he's turned up in the spring, but okay, and then he goes and makes the roster and catches like 40-some passes that year. I'm like, so okay, really good job. So you have to pay attention. Then the other one, this was more in training camp, was when Larry Johnson played here, and it looked good. And this is why, like with running backs, you just don't know, right? And he looked good in training camp. They're not taking him down, and like, oh wow, Larry looks good. And then he goes and averages he was averaging about what I was getting in college for my GPA, which was not 3 yards in a cloud of dust either. But so there we go.
There we go. Hey, if you're a 4.0 student, that's still not a great running back. So we don't need to go exact numbers, John, but like we get the point.
Yes, there you go. But there is but it is hard, and like James Thrash is always used to be like, got to get him the ball more. Look, he's making these plays, and then you get in the season, and it's the same thing. And then we go to the next spring and summer, same thing. Got to get him the ball, and then he doesn't. So like but there are guys that jump out at times, right? And I don't know. So like you have to pay attention to it, but you've got to try and keep it in perspective. And then it's like, who are they making those plays against too? What are they trying to accomplish? So
yeah. Definitely talked about that.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's good to be out there. It's good to see everybody. It's good to rib people and have some fun on the sidelines as we watch practice. And I think Logan put it really well today. He and I were chatting on the sideline, and he just goes, "This is really important for them. It's not that important for us." And yet, we talked for 20 minutes because that's what we do.
But you know what? Because like you get to what I like, Craig, is little glimpses. Like so. You can pick up things, and as long as you put it in the proper context, like with Trey Amos, like you can pick up things that he does well. And then it's like, okay, this is what we see in the spring. How does this translate? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, and there are little clues with other guys, like Jaden, to me, just looks crisp and sharp. And I have seen other quarterbacks come through here in 7-7 work who would tuck and run all the time. You don't see that with him. You didn't see it last year. You don't even see it at all this year, right? So, like, those are good things, but, like, you still have to see it in pads. But you can pick up little things about what you like about a guy.
It's a test to pass.
Correct. It's the spring. It's right. Like if you're a semester in college, like we're taking some early, first couple week quizzes right now. That's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then we get, later, and that's perhaps where the GPA met Larry Johnson's yards per carry.
Well, the GPA, the problem with that was, first of all, I was there for football and not to play it. But there were classes though that were like, come on, like, I did well in the classes I needed to. And I did all right. It wasn't horrible, but I knew.
John, how many times in the last 30 years of you working covering an NFL football team has someone asked you for your GPA?
Not just now. This is it.
Yeah, I didn't even ask. You brought it up on your own.
Because I wanted to make a joke. That's all. I'm just playing for the laughs here, Craig.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Hey, that's really what this show's about. We're just here for some kicks, giggles, and an occasional insight. John Keim, check out the John Keim Report. There's lots of insights there, and, of course, read his work at ESPN.com. John, always a pleasure, sir. Great to see you today, and I'll see you for minicamp in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. See you.
Got it. That's John Keim with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, you'll hear directly from the participants. Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn speaking today. Your pick 6 at 6 is next. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980, and it is time for our Pick 6 at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. speaking today, and we start off with, again, what is kind of, I guess, the biggest story. It's just there's only so much you can take out of practice, and then it's like, oh, these very important players are not there, so that winds up kind of being an important deal. And so with that,
number 1
is that, again, Marshawn Lattimore, along with Laramie Tunsil and Terry McLaurin, not there. On the Lattimore front, Joe Witt Jr. asked about it before practice today.
Hasn't been here. We've been in communication with him. So when he gets here, we'll see exactly where he is from a conditioning standpoint. From a mental standpoint, the coaches that have been meeting with him, talking with him. And so he's a smart young man, but we'll see exactly where he is when he gets here.
That is about as neutral as you can get from Joe Witt Jr. Not like, yeah, I love that he's not here. He's out there doing whatever he wants. Go, Marshawn. And not like, I cannot believe this son of a gun's not here. You're not doing either. Just like, hey, he's not here. We'll see where he is when he gets here. He's in communication. It's not like he's AWOL. And so it is what it is. Like, Marshawn Lattimore's a veteran. He's played a lot of NFL football, and I think he will be fine. That said, there is something to, and I thought Keim was great on this with us in the last segment, there is something to what is lost to other players by these guys not being there as veterans with know-how that's part of what you're kind of paying them for. So what is the importance at the OTA portion of the calendar for vets and rookies to be able to be together?
I think it's really important. I think, from a number of different aspects, okay? You have the opportunity to the brotherhood, the building. When we went on that 3-game losing streak, it wasn't anything other than the brotherhood that kept them together, and you start building that now with how we work and how DQ and AP runs this program. And then secondly, the rookies are allowed to meet a little bit extra, so they'll be with the vets in the morning, and in the evening they have rookie meetings, which I'm changing to developmental type meetings, so that they get extra, and they are. And Trey Amos, he's a guy that's ahead of the curve right now and doing really, really well.
Doing really, really well. Obviously, the end of that quote there. Yeah, it'd be great if the vets were there. Like, it's just better. It's also not catastrophic that they're not. And I know that's a hard needle to thread. It's suboptimal, but that is life, and it's not something that's going to prevent you from winning on a major level in the NFL.
Number 2.
If your D-line stinks, that will prevent you from winning on a major level in the NFL. And for Joe Witt, he's got to replace quite a bit of sack production. There's been a lot of talk about DNs, but, John Allen was a guy that would get interior pressure, and obviously he only played so many games last year. But with Dante Fowler gone, how do you replace the sack production? Joe Witt Jr. today on that.
I don't think going into the year anybody thought Dante was going to have 10.5 sacks last year. I don't think anybody in here would have said that. And so we'll have somebody that to produce a higher sack total than what's thought to be, okay? And so who that person is, I don't know. Will it be a collective of guys? I don't know. But I do feel that our pass rush will be better. I do feel definitely that our run defense will be better. Where will it come from? Which individual? It's too early to say, but it will come.
Confidence, but also humility. I don't know. I like coaches that say, I don't know this time of year, because how could you possibly know? That said, I do think that it's going to have to come from a collective. It's going to have to come from strength in numbers, which is how Dan Quinn had it when he was very successful, obviously, in Seattle. Here's Quinn on what he likes about the D-line this year.
I love the versatility of the different, guys and how we're going to feature them this year in terms of sizes and strength and how we'll use some of the big guys and how we'll play them. And so, that's to me is, the part that I'm looking forward to, putting those guys into those spots that they can really do their thing. And we're going to work really hard.
One of the biggest pieces of that, of course, is going to be Daron Payne, who we heard quite a bit about today.
Number 3.
How much growth can Payne make? It's year 8. Like, he is who he is as a player. Or is he, Dan Quinn?
You know, it's funny that you brought him up, but I walked past him today. I said, man, you've had a remarkable offseason. And I felt that way through the drill work, through the skill. Everyone, you just see something that jumps out differently, that's onto a new space. And I felt that from him coming into this offseason. And I've certainly been impressed by what I've seen so far. In fact, it was like literally today that I said, man, I've really been impressed by the work that you put in this offseason. And I see it, happening out on the
field and obviously in the meeting rooms as well. And Joe Witt Jr. equally impressed by Daron Payne so far this spring.
The guy that, to me, he just looks really good. He looks intentful. Daron Payne, man, like every day, this dude is. I'm having to tell him, hey man, let's calm down. Like I got in trouble with the head coach yesterday because I challenged the D line and he went after it and I said, Q, that was my fault. I told him to do. He did exactly what I told him to do, and so I've been really pleased. The walkthroughs, everything that we've asked him to do. And he's a leader. He doesn't talk much at all right? But he is leading by example. And this year, you can really see him taking that leadership role and taking it to the next step. So I would say he's been the guy that's just really stood out to me the most from that standpoint.
I've always kind of liked Daron Payne's demeanor. Like, he's come across to me in a very different way than what John Allen was. I know those two guys got grouped together because they were together at Alabama and all that kind of stuff. And John takes up more space, takes up more air in the room. Like, John's a guy that will get vocal. John's a guy that is out front. Daron's not necessarily like that, but Daron's about his business. And I think that takes a different shape when you don't have a Chase Young in the room, when you don't have a John Allen in a room. And so you get a room full of guys like Dietrich Wise, and Daron Payne gets to gravitate towards that. And I think that's how you're going to get the best version of Daron Payne. Not to mention, if you get guys like Wise as a player who just do their job. Like, his best year, his best football, Daron Payne's, came when Montez Sweat and he had a great chemistry. And Sweat was willing to do some dirty work for Daron, and Daron occasionally would do some dirty work for Montez. That was different than what was happening on the other side, where John Allen and Chase Young we're trying to be the star all the time. In that terrible 2023, just horrid season, Rivera's last one here, where it ultimately ended with Sweat and Young being traded in the middle of it. So at the end of the day, like, it's got to happen in the fall, but you love to see that better things are happening in the spring, and hopefully that can pay off, possibly in a literal sense, for Daron Payne, who has a very easily movable on-from contract and will be looking for an extension at the end of the season. More from Quinn and Witt next in our Pick 6, but first, the latest from the world of women's sports, presented to you by Wawa. Chicken, how you wanna at Wawa, with customizable roasted or crispy chicken sandwiches. Continuing with our pick six at 6, it's the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. News today is where we go next in our pick 6 at 6.
Number 4.
Number 4 in our pick 6 at 6 is an announcement that was, I guess, made official by Dan Quinn today. There hasn't been like a press release, but is as official as you get. The head coach said, yes, that is correct. Joint practices come in against a couple of teams this fall that they will then, of course, play preseason games against, and the Ravens and the Patriots. Here's Dan Quinn.
Sean, is that? Yeah, we're going to practice with New England with a game up there, and we're going to practice with Baltimore with a game here.
There you go. I love how he had to check with Sean DeBarbieri, the head of communications for the Commanders. And by the way, extra bonus in the pick 6 here. Congratulations to the Commanders PR staff. They won the, I believe it's called the Roselle Award as the best PR staff in the league. They've been great for us. They have a lot of stuff that they have to manage, and we don't always get exactly what we want, but I think we get a fair treatment, and they are always very communicative, which is really all you ask for. I would much rather, not this is outside the pick 6, but I would give this 10 seconds or less. I would always rather be told no than be told nothing at all. And they are good to say, hey, no, we can't do that. And that allows us to move on with our lives, or to be like, yes, we'll make it happen. And so congrats to Sean and Charlie and Sam and JC and everyone else on that crew who deserves that award and recognition. And now you've got extra recognition on the radio. You're welcome. And Dan Quinn, check with Sean, and we can tell you joint practices are in. I am excited to see specifically the joint practice against the Ravens. I mean, there's 2 great teams to practice against, a Vrabel team in New England, and then obviously we saw a couple years ago the intensity difference. And I thought the Commanders held their own in those practices, but in hindsight, you could see why Baltimore's Baltimore and why those Ron Rivera Commanders teams were the Ron Rivera Commanders teams, and some of the practice habits, the toughness, whatever. I hope that there's less fights. I hope there's less skirmishes. I hope it's more professional. Baltimore likes to be like, Baltimore likes to stretch the rules, even in practices against themselves, in terms of physicality and things in the fall, in the spring. And it's just different, and it builds a different, it's not the only way to do it, but certainly there's some old schoolness to the way John Harbaugh runs things. And so as long as it's eyes wide open going into that practice, I'm curious to see how the Commanders compete. And I think also it's probably smart to do just one day of joint practices, because typically on day 2 is where you get a million fights. And so hopefully they'll just do the one day, and then they can get the rest out in the game.
Number 5.
Number 5 in our pick 6 at 6. One of the things that you may have seen if you've been scrolling social media today is Mike Sainristil and Deebo Samuel working together post-practice. And it's the kind of thing that you love about this time of year. And you get new guys or new teammates that get to exchange notes, get a little bit of extra work in. And that's what DQ saw today with Mikey and Deebo working out. Was asked about it afterwards.
I think it probably speaks to like the environment that the players have created together. We all know, like, to be at our best, it's going to take all of us improving. And if that's Mikey asking Deebo a certain technique or vice versa, that's really where it takes place. And so we take these times on the field seriously, because it's not just the scheme, it's the individual skill work. If I can help isolate a specific route or a specific release, or, Mike in that instance of playing a certain coverage technique, it's one thing to know it on paper, or another thing to be in the classroom if we were all here together watching it on video. Like, we'd have an understanding of what a press technique, what a press corner is. But until you do it, and what can I do? Where's my hands? How do I have to be placed exactly? And be very specific. I think that's where the gold is. And that's why I think, like, the teaching this time of year has to shine on the coaches. And we've got some excellent ones, because they'll get very specific on the certain techniques. Let's try that one again. Let's put the hand into this space. You're not in a rush to get to the next play, or, you see, you guys are all here in season. There's jersey numbers on people, and okay, what are we gonna do with this person here? There's none of that now, and it's just on the skill.
It's also why this time of year is so important, and why, well, again, it's not the world's biggest deal. I really wish guys like Terry and Marshawn and Laramie Tunsil were there if I am DQ, because imagine if also in that conversation with Debo and Mikey is Terry McLaurin. And, all right, hey, Debo does it this way, I do it this way. Mikey, are you prepared for that? Because some receivers that we face are going to do it Debo's way. Some are going to do it my way. Or if, hey, Mikey, you guard it this way. Oh, well, I would do this. Debo says, well, I would do this. And they can have a discussion. And maybe Debo learns something from Terry. And so these conversations can still happen, right? There's guys that get in extra work in August during training camp and during practices during the regular season. It's just a really relaxed, pressure-free time to do it. And you're way more comfortable doing it if you have the bonds built. And the bonds get built this time of year, which is a big part of what Dan Quinn just talked about. And look, I covered teams where like offensive guys and defensive guys don't really talk to each other. It's not that they disliked each other. It's just there was no relationship. And so for guys like Mikey and Debo to just already be boys and, hey, let's work together after practice. And Debo's like, heck yeah. Or Mikey's like, heck yeah. Whoever initiated that conversation, the other person reciprocating, like that's a sign of a good, healthy team that can learn from each other and become better and get the most out of its talent.
Number 6.
Last but not least here in our pick 6 at 6, that kind of culture, that kind of atmosphere is exactly why guys wanted to come here. We talked about it with Jonathan Jones after practice. By we, I mean I. One-on-one interview that you can hear in the end of hour 1 of today's show if you want to check out the podcast or rewind on the Odyssey app. But it's why they've been able to get free agents that are like, yeah, get me here. I want to be in Washington. Quinn talking about that after practice today as well.
I think first that's you give credit to Adam and his staff. They have such a unique understanding of what the team needs too. And we had said way back, hey, this isn't for everybody, but for the people that are so much about one another and getting better and doing those things, like those are important things to us. Like one of the main things for the players starting off to be here, like, can you be an awesome teammate? Like top of the pile. Then it gets into like your role, what that can mean, how good can you get at these specific things, and then we go from there. But it has to be, man, like being a great teammate first. And so like, yeah, no, Dan, like that's important for everybody. But how do you live that, and how do you demonstrate that, and how do you show that to one another? Because not everybody's outspoken or not like giving each other greeting cards every day. But there's spaces that you fill in that you're helping one another, see how good you can get. And that to me is all part of it. I never wanted to be like having a good time and working your ass off to be in opposition of one another. Like I wanted those two things to happen simultaneously, like having a great time and we were like absolutely emptying it out to go work hard. And so when I see practices like yesterday, like today, you probably didn't see as much of the speed. We had so much more in the red zone, but like yesterday, it was speed, man. It was the Ashburn relays. We wanted to see how fast we could go without the contact, without that, but how fast we could go. And you push each other to do that. If you were running the route and I'm keeping up, like we are pushing each other, not in a combative way, but definitely in a competitive way. And I do think the players here have created that. Like, man, they do enjoy it. There's a good vibe that we have, but like we also put it in. And if you don't, you'll get exposed pretty quickly because the tempo of which we want to practice at is high. So like if you don't put in the work, it'll look rough for you.
I'm now mad at Dan Quinn. I'm genuinely annoyed at Dan Quinn. It's fake annoyed, but genuinely annoyed at Dan Quinn. Anthony, today's practice was, for our purposes, kind of boring, right? Red zone, don't get to move the ball drill, aka everything is static. Like they run a play, the ball goes back to the same spot, they run another play. You don't get to kind of see playmaking happen as much in the open field. There's some 7-on-7, there's some 11-on-11, but it's not progressive in the way that like that's a fun practice to watch. Yesterday they had the Ashburn relays. Why couldn't we get that practice, Dan? What? Dang. I'd like to get that award-winning PR department back on the phone. I want to lodge a formal complaint. I want fun practices that are open to the media because it's about us. That was a fake complaint. If you want real complaints about silly things, listen to the Chris Russell Show between 1 and 4. Don't shake your head at me.
Why did Chris Russell have to catch a straight? I think he was due one today, though. I'm not going to lie. He was due one.
Should we talk about Chris Russell's night at Nats Park next? We might talk about Chris Russell's night at Nats Park next. That's our pick 6. It's 6. Well, I honestly don't know what we're doing next. It might be that. We're going to have a good time. We'll see if Chris Russell is listening, because if so, then our phone is about to ring here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. If you hear this music, you know that something about Chris Russell is going to happen. Also, literally, I just saw, Anthony, it might have just dropped, but it probably dropped earlier today, and I just saw it. The Madden 26 trailer is out.
I haven't seen it yet.
So I want you to pull it up and get ready to hit play. on like not over the air hit play. Just I want you to be able to see it when we talk about it. But first, real quick, in case you missed this, or I actually don't know if Russell did this on the show or he just did this on social media. But I'm scrolling through earlier to make sure I didn't miss anything. And in my Washington football list, Russell's a part of my list, and the following tweets, these are real. Real tweets. Have you not seen these?
I have not.
Chris Russell, a.k.a. The Rooster, a.k.a. at WrestleMania621 on Twitter. Had a bad exit from Nationals Park last night on the main concourse and exiting out of the center field gate. And he tags the Nationals. Maybe 2 minor occurrences, but 1, a couple just completely stopped walking in the middle of the pathway with no warning and did not look behind them as I was walking closely behind. 2, as I was leaving the center field gate exit, I was holding an open cup of Diet Coke. The sign said, no alcohol past the gate exit. Security stopped me and said I had to throw it out. I said, it's soda. She said, no. All drinks had to be thrown out. I said, the sign says alcohol, not all. The man assisting her said, how do we know you don't have alcohol? It's served in those types of cups. I had my media badge and my work bag, and he tags at Nationals again. They would not hear it. They were rude. I complied and begrudgingly gave in. Was treated very rudely. Told them sign was wrong.
I don't mean to laugh.
No, you should laugh. So before our show, I saw this, and in the transition between Chris's show and our show, I was walked out in the hallway, and Grant Paulson and Danny Rouillet are out in the hallway as well, and they're looking at Chris because they had also seen this, and they had threatened or thought about doing a bit on their show about it, then for whatever reason decided not to. And I go, Chris, we should do a reenactment right now of how you can handle this drink situation. First of all, the couple stopping completely in the middle of the path. People stop all the time, and it drives me insane. As someone who lives in the city, people walk in 4 wide on stop signs. And you want to know what? Sometimes you just have to be an annoying, a quasi-rude person and match their rudeness with the word rudeness, except for your rudeness is, excuse me. And then they go, look back, and probably give you some stink eye, but they're in the wrong, so you get over it. Or you could be even, oh, excuse me. And or if they stop just in front of you, just walk around them. You keep it moving. But I was like, Chris, you play the security people. I'm going to pretend I'm you. And he's like, huh? And I was like, Chris, you play the security people. I'm going to pretend I'm you. And he goes, huh? And Grant goes, I got it. So I pretend. And by the way, as I'm doing that first part, I'm walking slower and slower because I was about ready to start the reenactment. And he would not comply with doing his role because he either didn't understand it or didn't want to. And I had to circle back around. And Grant's like, I got it. I was like, okay. So I pretend I'm Chris Russell, and I got my bag and I got my cup and I walk. And Grant goes, excuse me, sir, you can't leave with that. And I go, why not? And Grant goes, no alcohol outside the stadium. And not alcohol. We're good. Have a good day. And I kept on walking. Because that's what I would have done. You can't. What were they going to do? Arrest you? No, they're security guards. Okay. Hey, we can't let you go. You're going to kidnap me inside the stadium? Get lost. What are you going to do? Keep me in? You have no jurisdiction outside. Oh, what are you going to do? Throw me out? Are you going to wrestle the cup out of my hand? No. For whatever reason, there was a misunderstanding. I'm not blaming Chris. I'm not blaming the security folks. Chris is blaming the security folks. Whatever. Just sometimes in life, you got to learn how to ignore people and keep on moving. I thought that was hilarious. I read those tweets and laughed so hard because it's so perfectly Chris Russell.
Do you think Nat's PR, HR has,
PR or HR, different deals, or both?
Well, I mean, I don't know who Chris was trying to reach.
Do you think that the Nats sent out a memo to their security staff being like, hey, leave people leaving with Cokes alone?
I don't know who his target audience was. He just tagged the Nats. So I'm curious.
You know who I guarantee you didn't give a rip? The Nats social media team.
Yeah.
Who read that. I mean, brands care about what you say, and Chris clearly should have been able to leave with the soda. Like if I was a family, forget the fact that Chris is a media member. If I'm a dad or a mom who bought a souvenir cup of soda, I want to be able to leave with the souvenir cups. So whatever. And maybe because Chris didn't have a souvenir cup, he had whatever cup he had in the media room. I don't know. Lots of stuff with Chris Russell. You just go, I don't know. My dear friend. But what I probably would have done is send a nice note to the PR staff and be like, hey, just FYI, it's not that big of a deal, but your people, your security guards are a little aggressive. If it's possible to send a note to be like, hey, can we not harass the media people? You were trying to just take their Diet Coke to go. I would appreciate it. Again, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to do it. But I'm probably not tweeting about it. But everyone has. I've tweeted about other stuff in the past. I used to be a terror. Like an airline screwed me over. I still have people like JP Finley's like, man, Hoff, do you still go after American Airlines on social media? I was like, no, because you kind of look like a jerk. Even if you're right. I can't say I'll never do it again, but it's got to be pretty bad for me to go public with it.
Nice.
Have you ever gone after a brand on social media?
No, that is not my. I don't like attention.
I'm going to say something to Anthony as soon as we go to break, and he's going to laugh really hard. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about Madden 26 because the trailer just dropped. First, a look at what's trending. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Anthony, did you watch the Madden trailer?
I was waiting.
Oh, well, you should hit play on it right now because I want your reaction. The graphics look the most realistic I have ever seen. I know sometimes the trailer is a little bit better than the actual game, and it depends on your gaming system, your TV, and all that kind of stuff. This looks like they took real human beings and animated them in the video game. And some of it's like the signature animations. They have like Mahomes twisting throw and, different guys. They have the reverse hurdle in the game for Saquon. I don't know exactly how you pull it off, but I'm sure there'll be special instructions. So there's stuff that is sick. But like, I just feel like generally speaking, that is an upgraded graphics package that looks like real. Like if my wife doesn't see the controller and she were to walk in at 1:00 on a Sunday and I was sitting on the couch and I threw the right teams up on the screen, she'd be like, hey, what's the score? And then not realize that I was playing Madden.
Dog, this is insane. They just did the DK standing on business.
Yeah, the celebrate. I mean, so their whole theme this year is like the realest Madden ever. So they have a bunch, like all the, if you've been to a Saints game or you've been to a Chiefs game, you've been to all the different, even the Cowboys, like their signature walk-in. You'll have some of those graphics. Apparently, there's going to be signature graphics packages for Monday, Sunday, and Thursday night games. So it's going to feel more realistic. It's built on traditions, is one of the taglines in it. But the realness just starts with the fact that it looks like I'm not making that up, right? I'm not going to go home and flip fake. On. Like it looks real. Like that's the problem. That's the thing.
It looks so real. That like I know it's fake, but it looks too real.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's like Madden 23 to 24 to 25 was relatively the same graphics level.
Yeah,
it's looked pretty real for a while now in terms of a video game. This looks like you're watching football on TV.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Now, is that just for the trailer? Were they able to sharpen some stuff up, or do you think this is gonna how it's gonna be when we hit play on it?
I think this is mainly for the trailer. I will say, so you know how like after the game, like you do like replays or you might go look at, a scoring drive or a scoring play, an interception. I think when you look at the replays, it'll probably look something like that. But in game, no way.
Maybe. That's crazy.
Hey, look, I'd rather them prove me wrong because if they do, my.
Yeah. Do we have a release date for that yet?
Am I looking at it right now? No, that's not the release date. No.
August 14th. If you have
say no more, I will be getting the pre-sale.
Yeah, if you get the pre-sale, it's August 11th, which I will definitely be doing. I'm pretty pumped. I wonder how many more seasons I can get in my franchise mode. I'm currently in the 2032 season, I believe.
2032, God damn.
Yeah.
What year is that for Jaden then? 8?
It's like 9 or it's not like Jaden's I think on the plus side of 30 at this point.
Dang. Yep.
I think we're at 8, soon to be 9-time Super Bowl champions. Made a big.
Oh, so you won the Super Bowl every year?
Pretty much, yeah. I think I didn't win it the first year. I think I lost in the Super Bowl. Now, sometimes like I probably would have lost, but I quit and won. So, but like the last 3 seasons, I've kind of just been like, hey, if I lose, I lose. And then, especially last year, my roster was at a kind of a breaking point, and Jaden's good enough that I won it anyway. But then I had a slot receiver that I had drafted a couple years in. Like Terry finally retired, which sucked. He got hurt and then he retired, and I was like, dang.
That does suck.
The end came fast. I got a little emotional. I'm not gonna lie. But I had this like 97 overall receiver who I played in this. He was like really good in the slot, so I put him there. But I was just like, I think I can flip him for something better. And then as I was scouting during the season, the top guy in the draft was a receiver, and I was like, this guy's gonna be insane. And so I was like, I have to figure out how to get the top pick in the draft. And especially like once the pro days and the combines and stuff happened, dude ran like 4.2 something. And I was like, this dude's like 6'5", runs a 4.2. He's like A's across the board.
Yeah, that's scary.
And I was like, this guy's going to be amazing. And so I trade my 97 receiver and like 3 picks for like my number 1, but like not 3 first. I only gave up one.
I was about to say,
I only gave up one.
Gracious.
I only gave up 1 first. But I think I gave up like maybe it's a first, a third, and next year's second kind of thing. Plus a 97 receiver to get this guy. He's already like a 92.
Yeah, it's a little concerning.
He's going to be a 99. Dude's sick. I think I actually just finished the regular season of his first season. He led the league in catches. He almost had a 2,000-yard season. Yeah, it was crazy. Jaden threw 62 touchdowns. We're nasty.
That's nasty.
Yeah. So, draft and develop, baby. Sometimes you got to sometimes you got to give to get. We're doing it. But I think I can get to a couple more seasons in by August at least.
We're on our last one, so
I don't know how, like, do I really want to play past when Jaden retires?
No, starting over with a rookie quarterback can be challenging.
But if I've never had a chance to draft and develop one.
Oh, there you go.
I've had Jaden the whole time. So there's that. Just never want to live football life without Jaden Daniels again, Anthony. Just get to the end of Jaden's career. Oh, look, Madden 26 is here. Let's start again with Jaden Daniels in 2025 and see if we can win a Commander Super Bowl. All right, tomorrow on the show, never read the comments. We'll also, probably should have been saying this the whole show, we'll be live at Care First Arena ahead of the Mystics and the Liberty. I do believe Christy Winter-Scott is going to join us, talk a little Mystics, but also preview the NBA Finals. We'll have more on Commanders OTAs as Logan Paulson and I will be recording a Take Command tomorrow morning. We'll share some of that with you here on the show. Any other housekeeping, Anthony?
No, you mentioned everything.
Okay, excellent. Time for real things.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
The screen got a little glitchy there, so I had to turn to you in real life and make sure that I had the numbers right. All right, we don't have a whole lot of time. Let's see. What do we got? I want to play the cello thing, but I don't think we have time. This was a funny bit yesterday. We got 2 quick ones that we'll do today. Peyton Manning is one of the newest owners of the new NWSL club coming to Denver, and he had to FaceTime his brother Eli to tell him. Eli, by the way, already ownership for the New York club Gotham FC.
Yo, what's up, Peyton? Remember you were telling me the reason you like the NWSL is because you didn't have to compete with me?
Yeah. Why?
Well,
reveals Denver NWSL shirt.
Bitch, son of a.
Pretty funny. Good reveal. Well done.
They have such a great relationship.
They're also good. You know, they understand. Sometimes simple's the way to go. Last but not least, parting words from Tyrese Halliburton as the NBA Finals are set tomorrow. This was on the court of the Eastern Conference Finals.
You know what it is. Stephen A., Salome, have it your way. Pacers in 6.
Pacers in 6. That's our show. See you tomorrow.